We're going to talk about walking in steps. When you walked in here today, I want you to think about it for a moment. How did you walk in? One step at a time? Did you walk like this?
Pretty much.
Pretty much? Where is a rim shot when you need it? Yeah. But we all have these steps. We all take steps in life. We all move from one place to another, both physically, but also in the way we live, in the way we get skills. Think about something that you're good at. Okay, what's something that you're good at? Oh, come on. Yes.
Yeah, he's right. He said shopping, square dancing, taking care of people.
Okay. Now, when you popped out of your mom's womb, did you do all three of those things?
I danced.
You danced?
Made your mom happy.
Maybe, yeah, I bet that made your mom happy. But you think about when you have you all have some kind of skill. How did you get to the point of having the skill? Practice. A little bit of failure somewhere in there.
Oh, yeah.
Education, yeah. That it's a process. It's one step at a time. You know, no one walked in to Johnny Carson. Nobody's old enough here to remember Johnny Carson. But Johnny Carson did not walk into the NBC executives and say, I think you should hire me. No, it was a whole raft of steps. I've been watching a show that's tracing the history of the Beatles. And the number of terrible things that happened to them is astounding. They played in Berlin for a long time, and I guess the expression we would use today is they were not food safe. They were starving at different points. They were playing in these clubs but not getting paid or not getting paid enough. You know, and for all those people who didn't make it, you know, there are people who wanted to have great careers in pick it, okay? Sports, the arts. Can you imagine is there anything more discouraging than being an actor? Where you're called in repeatedly, you take an interview and you do a little scene and they say, nah, you're not good enough. And to have that happen over and over and over again. Just the amount of effort that just emotionally. There was a young woman, true story, who was the best violinist in her town down south. She was terrific. She was a really good violinist, and everybody knew her because of being a violinist. And after graduation, her dream was to be what? A professional violinist. So she got on the train and she went to New York, because that's what you did. You went to New York to seek your fortune. She got off the train. She's walking through Penn Station, which is the train station there. And there is this smelly, dirty, stinky guy. And guess what he's doing? Playing the violin. And he's got the violin case open and people are throwing money as they go by. She about becomes unglued because he's so much better than she is. And for over a year, she tried to get a job. Couldn't get a job playing. She went to all the applications and all the interviews and everything. Nobody would hire her. And I wonder about, as we go through our steps of learning and even our steps through life, you know, we are on this continuum. You know, we start somewhere where we were just really are bad at it, okay? I was bad at it. I mean, not just bad at bowling, but, the ball would go down on the wrong alley, or I would hit my leg with the ball, the big ball, the 10 pins. You know what it feels like when a 16-pound ball hits your ankle? Not good stuff. But we work through this process, these steps, and we're on this treadmill of continuous improvement to get better, to get better, to get better. And sometimes in this process, no one here has ever gotten frustrated. No one here has ever said, I have reached my limit. I have come to the point where the next step is just too high. It's just, yes, I am cute. No, the picture's cute. I'm not cute. The idea of life is we come to these steps. And sometimes the steps come easy. But then there's a time where the steps get harder. The steps get harder because we come to those points we say, I don't know whether I can do it. Or we say, I don't know that I want to pay the price. I have a friend of mine who is just finishing up a book, and I was on the phone with him yesterday, and we were talking about the idea of writing a book. And I've met many people who say, I should write a book. And then they never do it. But my friend, who I've known since high school, said, I should write a book, and he's actually done it. And now he's getting to the point, it's about to be published, to be real paper, and it's like, what do I do now? Writing the book just gets you so far. Getting somebody to notice you. You ever hear of a series of books about a guy named Harry Potter? Do you know how many times she was rejected? It's over 20. It might be 30. 30 different people rejected her story. And they're kicking themselves. But it comes to a point, and we've come to a point in the life of Joseph, where remember, he has had this long life, and it has been a roller coaster at least. Okay? He was a snot-nosed teenager whose brothers threw him into a dry well, got beat up, falling down there. They pulled him up, sold him into slavery, went to work for Potiphar, whose wife accused him of rape. He gets thrown into jail, and he's there for a while. And you got to understand, when you get thrown into an Egyptian jail, there's no such thing as getting out. Okay? There are no dates. There are no court appearances. There's none of that stuff. Anyway, he interprets a dream, and it comes true, and the cupbearer goes out and is restored and forgets Joseph. You ever been forgotten? He was forgotten for years. Anyway, he gets remembered. He comes, he's now essentially he's the number 2 guy in the country, and the brothers come down, and then they send up, and their dad comes down, and they've all come down. And now, after all of that, Joseph last week brings his brothers before Pharaoh. Just 5 of the brothers. And they screw it up. And now he brings his dad. Now, I don't know what kind of dad you had. I don't know what kind of dad you were. But we're all failures at it. Okay? And he brings his dad up, whose name is Jacob. You know him by Jacob. And you know what that name means, right? His name means he's someone who trips other people up. Isn't that a good name to have? Don't you wish you had a name that said, I'm a tripper? Anyway, Joseph brings Jacob into the presence of Pharaoh. Now remember, who is Pharaoh? He's the king, but he's more than the king. He's a god. He's the head of the religion. He's the head of the economy. He's the one that they believe the sun rises and sets because he does his job. He's the one that they believe the Nile River every spring, comes in and waters everything and refreshes the soil. That's who this guy is. You just don't walk in, you got to get an appointment. And this was a separate appointment that Joseph set just for his dad to reach up and talk to Pharaoh. And so he brings him in before Pharaoh. And what is the first thing that Jacob does? He blesses who? Does that sound odd to you? Why does that sound odd? Should be the other way around because he's God. I'll tell you another reason it sounds strange. Do they worship the same God? No. But does that stop Jacob? No. I have a friend who, I actually have more than one friend, if you want to believe that. But, I have this one friend who worships another God. And I'm going to say lowercase g because it's not the God of heaven and earth, has nothing to do with Jesus, worships somebody else. Should I treat them poorly, or should I treat them like what Jacob does and try to bless them? I try to bless them. Because didn't God try to bless you and me when we were still snotball sinners? That's a new theological term, by the way. He does, and Pharaoh, he gets blessed, and the first words out of his mouth are, how old are you? He must have looked really bad. He didn't have Botox. He didn't have the lotions. He lived out in the desert his whole life. And so he's got that leathery skin thing going on. And Pharaoh says, well, how old are you? And that's really a very interesting question because Pharaoh had one job. That was to live forever. Why do you think they built the pyramids? The pyramids were a time machine where they went in, they put their body in there to live forever. So how old are you? And Jacob gives this really great answer. The years of my what? Pilgrimage. What's a pilgrimage? It's a walk in the desert. It's a journey. A lifetime. It's a very interesting word. When I was a kid, my mom and dad, actually it was more my mom, my dad drove, okay? But we went on a pilgrimage, okay? We drove to a church in Canada. And this particular church had a reputation for healings. And in the back of the church, I'm just a little kid. It's like it happened yesterday. The back wall of the church were nothing but canes and crutches all piled up on the wall. And it was said that the waters from this well that was outside the church was responsible. So we went there. I went with my mom. We even have 8mm film to document this. We brought up on purpose mayonnaise jars, okay? We brought, because mayonnaise jars seal up, right? So we went there, and my dad is taking 8mm of my mom and I filling up these jars with water and sealing them up. And then we went to another part of this place in this pilgrimage, and it was, we walked in, and there were these wooden steps that went up to where the worship center was. And I started to walk up, and she said, "No, no, no." I said, "What do you mean, no, no, no?" She said, "We go up on our knees. And we say a prayer for each time we go up." No wonder I had a knee replacement this past year. And we did all of this, okay? That's, maybe what some people think of as a pilgrimage, that it's somehow tied to an experience or tied to receiving a blessing from God because I've endured it. And the idea really behind pilgrimage is, yes, it's a trip, but it's a trip with a weight. Not a weight as in the other day I had to wait for somebody to bring me the coffee or to bring me a breakfast. The weight was the heaviness of it. There was a trip, but it was the journey with a heaviness on it. That's what the pilgrimage idea is that he was on the pilgrimage. And he said, my years, they're 130. And how does he describe his years? Few and difficult. 130 and his years are few. He failed math, okay? I failed spelling. I got straight D minuses. Yes, I did. Straight D minuses. Yes. Exceeded only by the D's I got in Spanish. But the pilgrimage of my fathers. You see, he was talking about a pilgrimage is moving. His life was moving. I look back at my mom and my dad and I say, well, they didn't have this kind of pilgrimage. When was the last time you packed to move? Wasn't that fun? Nothing but joyous memories, right? That's what he's saying his life is like when he says he's on a pilgrimage. When we moved from Connecticut to Arizona, I rented the biggest Hertz truck I could find. And that wasn't big enough. So I had to rent a trailer behind it, and we ran out of room. And it isn't like we had a lot of stuff. But, it was a tough move. I don't know what it is about me and Hertz trucks. Every time I rent one or drive one, it breaks down. The truck going out to Arizona, we picked up a bad load of gas in Texas, and we sputtered from Texas to Arizona. Friends of ours moved from Baltimore to Boston, and here was the deal. Here was the plan. Don't you love a plan? The plan is we're going to drive up from Baltimore to Boston. It's about 10 hours, okay? We're going to drive up to Boston. We're going to start out early Friday. We're going to drive up. Saturday, we're going to unload. Sunday, I'm going to drive back and bring the truck back. Sounds like a plan, right? We didn't get to Boston till Tuesday. We required road service 7 times. The steps, the pilgrimage. And what made this particular trip more interesting is that the people we were moving, he was going to go to seminary because he felt called of God. And I remember him walking out away from us all in the corner and just sitting down and putting his head in his hands and wondering, is it supposed to be this hard? I thought if God was with me, it was always, sunshine and rose petals. Pilgrimage. We're on a pilgrimage. But also, his days were few and difficult. He ran into those steps. You ever run into those steps where you say, how am I going to get over this? How am I going to take the next one? I just fell. This past year, we had, I had the knee surgery, and the following week, remember, came the first hurricane. Do you know what it's like to try to help to clean up? Marianne and Eddie did by far the bulk of the work. They worked so hard. I almost fell over 3 times. That's how hard-headed I am. Few and hard. The days are difficult. His days were difficult. Maybe your days you feel like they're difficult. I remember my mom was in assisted living, and then she was put into hospice care. And, you don't know how long these things are going to go. And on a Friday, was it a Friday? I think it was a Friday. I get a call from the hospice people, and they say, your mom is going to die in the next 2 days. And I'm like, first of all, how do you know this? And they said, we've been around. We know. She's going down. If you want to come, you better come. So I talk to Marianne, I get on the phone, I make flight reservations, drive up to Orlando, and to get on the plane. So I go through security, I get to the gate, and the flight is on time. And then it's delayed. So I'm sitting there for a couple hours, so I call Mom up. And she's very cheery. Hey, how you doing, kid? And we talk and we banter because that's the way we do it. And I say, I love you, Mom. And I'll be there as soon as I can, as soon as they can get this Fakafka plane off the ground. So anyway, the plane eventually, don't ask me what that means. Fakafka is a kind of Italian bread. Anyway, the plane eventually takes off. I finally get to Baltimore, but it's COVID, so everything's shut down, right? And, it's beyond the hours of the place she's in. Now, I had called them up, and I said, look, hospice says Mom is dying. Are you going to, I said, and I'm asking this with all sincerity. I'm not trying to beat anybody up. Are you going to let me in? Because remember, you couldn't. Anyway, they said, we'll work with it. We'll make it work. We'll make it happen. I said, terrific. But it's too late. I get up there, so I go to my in-laws, and I go to sleep. This is what they thought of me. I slept in the basement. So anyway, I go in the basement. I go to sleep. And at about 11:30, my phone rings, and it's the assisted living. My mom has died. So I said, okay. So I said, have you called the right people, the funeral home? Yeah, we've called them. So I said, well, I'm coming over. So I went over there. And they let me in. They were very nice, And they really were. And so I just went in, and I sat with my mom, sat with the body, and I prayed over her. I didn't pray for her soul because I already knew where she was, which was so comforting. But it was a journey, this painful process. It was a pilgrimage I was on. And then, not too long later, the guy from the funeral home comes in, very respectful. He, said how sorry he was, and he needed to, collect Mom's body. And I said, would you mind if I helped? I wanted to honor her. So together, I said, you tell me what to do and I'll do it, because we got to get her together and put her on the gurney and all that. And we did that. And we walked her out. You see, that's a pilgrimage. That's a pilgrimage. Pilgrimages don't always end where, like every night at Disney World where there's this big fireworks display and everybody's singing and happy. Not all pilgrimages end that way, because not all of life ends that way. There's a scene in The Chosen where Lazarus has died, and everybody is crushed, and then they're confused because Jesus says, what? I'm glad I didn't go there, so now you can see. And so they then walk. There's the scene of them walking to where Lazarus, his home. And there's a scene between little James and Mary of Magdala where they're talking. And the reason they're going is something called to sit Shiva. I don't know if you know what that is. Remember what I did with my mom? I sat with the body. That's what sitting Shiva means. It's a way to mourn. It's a way to encourage and help the bereaved, the people who have had the loss. So, the disciples their brains are just going all over the place. He's asleep, Jesus said. No, Jesus said he's dead. Now Jesus says he's going to awaken him. What's going on? They're so confused. In this scene, you'll see little James and Mary of Magdala working through this confusion.
Your steadfast love, my heart will rejoice in your salvation. I will sing to the Lord because he has dealt bountifully with me.
Done that? Oh, they're not very pretty.
But in the middle, there's this line. Consider and answer me, O Lord my God. Light up my eyes, lest I sleep the sleep of death. Sleep and death. Sometimes they're used interchangeably. It appears only God knows the difference.
Does that answer your question about why I said we'll sit Shiva or we won't?
You see, Mary's worked it out. Are we going to sit Shiva or not? Will he be risen or not? They can't wrap their mind around the fact that Jesus says he's going to raise him. They can't fathom it. And maybe that's the same way with you and me. I can't speak for you, but I'll speak for me, if you don't mind. Is that I know that God loves me. I know that somewhere up in my head. But do I live like that? Do I live with the assurance that he is taking care of me? Or, in the words of Corrie ten Boom, do I have to put my hands around life and hold on so tight that God's got to rip my fingers off of it for him to take control back? You see, is he really in control or not? Is he or isn't he? And he says, and Jacob is working through this himself. He's talking to Pharaoh, and he also says, the pilgrimage of my fathers. He's talking about his family. He looks back through his family, his personal family, and also his personal spiritual pilgrimage. It's easy to think of the people in the Bible as they got it all together. Let me tell you, Jacob, ain't no way. Ain't no way. Joseph, ain't no way. And the same is for you and me. We ain't got it. We don't have it all wired. And after thinking about his own checkered past, what does Joseph do? Jacob blesses Pharaoh again. Blesses this guy again. And then Joseph settled his father and brothers in Egypt and gave them property in the slums. Where? The best part of the land. Now you're looking at this picture behind me and you're thinking, where is that? You know, let me tell you where that is. That is the most expensive gated community in America. Okay? It's not Lake Ashton. It's outside Los Angeles. It figures. Yeah, I heard that. You see, he gives them, you know what? Joseph could have said, you guys threw me down into a pit. And then you sold me. You didn't wrap up my hurt. I heard you talking up there, trying to figure out whether you should kill me or not. And what does he do? How does he pay them back? He gives them the best part of the land. But not just the best part of the land, it's the district of Ramesses. And who was Ramesses? The Pharaoh, the high muckety muck, numero uno. You see, he put them where the circle is. That was the best land. You see, the Nile River is right there, the best land. They get the water, and when the Nile River floods, it brings down silt and it renews the soil every year. He put them in the best. He's probably in Memphis, not Tennessee. He's in Memphis because that's where the head of the government was. He was probably there. He gave them the best, but he also wasn't looking over their shoulder. He gave them freedom. And then he provided for his father and his brothers. He didn't just give them land. He provided food, everything they needed. Is this generous? Is this undeserved? You think about giving to people and you think, how much is enough? How much is enough? I knew when we were first married, we would celebrate Christmas with my wife's family, okay? Her two sisters and all of the kids in a 14.5-foot wide row home, okay? It was close fellowship, okay? One bathroom, by the way, upstairs. And there's this one scene, the paper is been torn into shred by the kids, the ribbons. They're running around with their new stuff, and they're all excited. And in the middle of this mayhem is one of the kids. It wasn't one of ours. That's all I'll say. Because we would have smacked. No. One of the kids was standing in the middle. Everybody's running around. This one kid's standing there holding stuff in their hand and under their arm. And they cry out, "Is there anything else for me?" And we laugh at that, but am I not the same way? I won't ask you about if you're that way, but I know I'm that way. Is that it? Isn't there more? How selfish am I before God that I need more? And yet, when pain comes, we have a choice. When pain came to Joseph's life, he had a choice. The choice is something like this. Pain can make you better or bitter. It's your choice. The pain that I've experienced, the pain that you've experienced, and we've all got it, okay? If you say you don't have it, you need some help. Because we all got it. The question is, what are we going to do with it? What are we going to do with it? The pain, somebody once said, we're either in the middle of pain, pain is leaving, or pain is coming. I think he was right. And we see this portrayed in 1 Peter. So if you are suffering. Suffering sounds like pain to me, doesn't it? Sounds like pain. But you're not just suffering. How are you suffering? In a manner that pleases God. That tells me something. What does it tell us? There's a way to suffer that doesn't please God. It also says there's a way to suffer that does please God. If we're doing it in a way that pleases God, we are to keep on doing what is right. Keep on doing what is right. And trust your lives to the God who created you. For he will never fail you. He will never fail you. We see this, of all people, with Jesus on the cross. He's up there, bleeding, dying, excruciating pain, and people are below him saying, yo, Jesus, if you come down, first of all, you'll start feeling better, and we'll believe you. We'll follow you. And what does Jesus do? He stays. Why does he stay? He stays for you and me until all of our sin, past, present, and future, is paid for. Then he can say, it is finished. When he says it is finished, that means all of it's done, all of it's paid for. No more. We can rest in him. And he never failed in that task. And he won't fail with you and me. You know, you think about Job. We always talk about Job. You know, Job lost it all, okay? Lost his job, lost his family, lost his equipment, lost everything. And he tears his robe, he shaves his head, which those are big things. Those are ways to show that you're mourning. He falls to the ground and complains. No, he didn't complain. What is he? He falls to the ground, how? In worship. He falls in worship and says, naked I came from my mother's womb, and naked I will depart. The Lord gave, the Lord has taken away. May the name of the Lord be praised. And God showers down the blessings right away. No. It doesn't happen that way. Sometimes it might. But God's timetable, God's path for you and me, our pilgrimage isn't always going to be that way. Yet he does this, and how is he evaluated? In all this. Job didn't sin. What would be the easy sin? Charging God with wrongdoing. Right. God, you screwed up. I don't deserve this. You see, this is where, Jesus, again, is the ultimate example. He's the only person who there were 613 rules and regulations in the Old Testament. He kept them all. He kept the 10 Commandments. He kept, love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, strength, and mind, and your neighbor as yourself. He also kept, think about the Sermon on the Mount, where he says, blessed are this person, this person. He kept all of those. And what was his reward? What was his payment? Crucifixion, betrayal. You see, he took our punishment. But why did he take our punishment? so we could receive his blessing. Some people call it the great exchange. We exchange. He took what we deserve, and we get what he deserved. There's an episode of NCIS where Charles Durner, who is a great character actor, plays this 80-year-old Navy veteran. And the Navy is coming after him for, he's being charged with a crime. And there are, they catch up with him, and there is, the attorney that's going to charge him. And here are a couple of Navy police guys, built out to here, tall, flat top, the whole thing. And they are ready just to grab him. And then a friend goes up to Charles, who's got a tie, but the collar is unbuttoned. His friend pulls down the tie and opens up the shirt to show that this guy had won the Congressional Medal of Honor. And when those people see the Congressional Medal of Honor, guess what they do? They snap to attention. Why? Because of all that is meant by that medal is on him. In Jesus Christ, you and I have something better than the Congressional Medal of Honor. We are clothed in his righteousness. We are made new. We are in the process of being made new. And one day, we're going to not just be made better, we're going to be made way, way, way better. And that all comes because the value of who Jesus is put on us, is given to us. We got to start living like that. It's easy for me to get discouraged, let me tell you. I understand. But the time is now for myself and my friends that we start paying attention. It's a new day. New day to start the new part of the pilgrimage God has put us on. Would you walk with me in faith? Would you pray? Our Father and our God, we thank you that your love for us is from everlasting to everlasting, and that in Jesus Christ our eternity is guaranteed. Oh God, forgive us when we don't live like that, when I don't live like that. Thank you that there is forgiveness that's full and free, and that makes us new. Continue to make us new every day in Jesus' name. Amen.